Hello everyone and welcome to Afterlife, where we share real stories from people who have had experiences beyond this world. These powerful near-death experiences and divine encounters aim to inspire and strengthen believers, guiding them toward the life God has prepared for them. Today, I will share the incredible story of Dr. Michael Harrison, who died and came back with a message that reveals the hidden truth about second chances after death. Before continuing this story, write in the comments where you are watching this video. I want to know how far this story is reaching. Your presence here is not by chance. My name is Dr. Michael James Harrison. I am 38 years old and a heart surgeon at St. Mary's Medical Center in Denver, Colorado. On March 18, 2023, at exactly 2:47 p.m., I died for 8 minutes and 14 seconds during what should have been a routine surgery. But what I experienced was anything but routine. Let me ask you something before we continue. Have you ever wondered if there really is a second chance after death? Do the prayers of the living really make a difference to those who have passed away? You may be thinking, great, another near-death story. But wait. Before you leave the page, let me explain why this one is different. If you are someone who has lost a loved one and tortures yourself with thoughts like, what if I had prayed more? Keep watching. If you are a Christian but struggle with doubts about eternal destiny, this message is for you. If you have ever felt that you are running out of time to get right with God, please don't stop here. And if you don't believe in any of this but are curious about what really happens when we die, stick with me. Because what I have discovered will challenge everything you think you know. This isn't just about seeing a tunnel of light. What I'm about to share is about the choices we make after we die, about how time works differently on the other side, and most importantly, about how I discovered that death isn't an ending. It's a crossroads. And at that crossroads, something extraordinary can happen if the right people are praying for the right person at exactly the right moment. To understand what happened to me, you need to know who I was before that day. As a cardiac surgeon, I saved lives for a living. The irony is, I rarely thought about my own mortality. I was what you might call a cultural Christian, attended church maybe twice a month, said grace before dinner. But my faith was more tradition than transformation. My life was all about precision and control. 16-hour surgeries, medical conferences, research papers. My colleagues knew me for my technical skill, but also for my emotional detachment. I treated human hearts like machines that needed repair. Nothing more, nothing less. I lived in a beautiful house in Cherry Creek, drove a BMW, had everything the American dream promised. But there was an emptiness I couldn't quite shake, a feeling that I was going through the motions of life without really living. The week before the incident, something strange started happening. I began experiencing chest pains. Not severe, but noticeable. As a cardiac surgeon, I knew I should get checked, but I kept putting it off. After this next surgery, when I finish this case, next week for sure. The irony wasn't lost on me later. On March 18th, a Saturday, I was performing a complex bypass surgery on a 52-year-old teacher named Patricia Williams. She had 3 young children waiting at home. The procedure was going perfectly until I felt a crushing pain in my chest, like someone had wrapped a steel band around my heart and was tightening it. My hands began to shake. The surgical instruments felt impossibly heavy. "Dr. Harrison, are you all right?" I heard my resident Dr. Sarah Chen ask from across the table. I tried to answer, but no words came. The operating room started spinning, and I felt my knees buckle. The last thing I remember thinking was, not now. Not like this. Patricia needs me to finish. Then everything went black. When the darkness lifted, I found myself floating above the operating table. I could see my own body collapsed on the floor, with my surgical team frantically working on both me and my patient. Dr. Chen had taken over my surgery while the anesthesiologist and nurses were performing CPR on me. "No pulse for 4 minutes," someone shouted. "Continue compressions." It was surreal watching my colleagues fight to save my life with the same intensity I'd always brought to saving others. I could see the panic in their eyes, the professional determination mixed with personal fear. Dr. Chen's hands were shaking as she continued the bypass procedure, tears streaming down her face behind her surgical mask. I tried to yell, "I'm here! I'm okay!" But no sound came. I tried to touch Dr. Chen's shoulder, but my hand passed right through her like smoke. That's when it hit me. I was dead, but somehow still conscious, still myself. What surprised me most was the lack of fear. There was a supernatural peace surrounding me, like being wrapped in an invisible blanket of comfort. My thinking was clearer than it had ever been in life, as if my mind had been upgraded to some higher version of itself. I could hear everything in perfect detail, not just the medical equipment and voices, but thoughts, emotions, even prayers. I heard Dr. Chen silently praying, "Please, God, don't let him die. He's got so much more to give." I heard the surgical nurse whispering under her breath, "Come on, Dr. Harrison, fight." After what felt like several minutes of watching, though time seemed to flow differently, I sensed a presence behind me, not threatening, but powerful. A voice not audible but clearly perceived in my consciousness said, "Michael, it's time to go." I turned and saw a being of light, not with human features exactly, but definitely personal. The light wasn't blinding, but warm, like sunlight filtering through golden curtains. This being radiated unconditional love, the kind of love that accepts without judging, but also sees everything without illusion. "Where are we going?" I asked, discovering I could communicate through thought. "To a place where you'll understand," the being replied. And then we began to move. The movement wasn't physical. It was more like dissolving and rematerializing. One moment I was in the operating room, the next I was in a place that defies earthly description. Imagine a vast crystalline hall that extends beyond the horizon, but doesn't feel cold or institutional. The walls, if they could be called that, pulsed with soft light in shades of gold, blue, and silver. The floor was solid beneath my feet but transparent, revealing depths that contained what looked like entire galaxies. I wasn't alone. There were hundreds of others there, all in different stages of processing, for lack of a better word. Some walked with purpose, others stood motionless, contemplating. Some seemed luminous and peaceful, others carried a grey mist around them. "This is the Hall of Reflection," my guide explained. "Everyone who dies comes here first, before moving on to their eternal destination. This is where choices are clarified, where consequences are understood." I approached a man who was sitting with his head in his hands. I could feel his sadness like a physical emanation. "What happened to him?" I asked. "He lived only for himself," my guide responded. "Not evil, just indifferent. Now he's seeing how his indifference affected others. Every life touched, every missed opportunity to do good, every moment he chose comfort over compassion." To my right, a woman radiated pure joy. Her eyes sparkled like stars. And her? She loved without measure, sacrificed for others, forgave when it was difficult, chose kindness even when it cost her dearly. Her joy comes from seeing how her choices created ripples of good that are still spreading. That's when I understood. This wasn't a place of external judgment, but of internal revelation. Each person saw clearly the consequences of their life choices. There was no way to deceive yourself here, no way to rationalize or justify. A middle-aged woman approached me. She looked familiar, though I couldn't place her. "Dr. Harrison," she said softly, "you saved my husband's life 3 years ago. David Martinez, remember? You worked on him for 7 hours straight." I did remember. A construction worker who'd had a massive heart attack on the job. "Is he?" "Alive and well," she smiled. "He's been praying for you every day since his surgery. That's actually why I'm here, to tell you that prayers are being offered for you right now, in your world. Powerful prayers, from people whose lives you've touched." "What do you mean?" I asked. Before she could answer, my guide gestured toward a pathway of light that hadn't been there moments before. "Michael," he said, "there's someone who wants to meet you." We walked down the pathway, and with each step, I felt an increasing sense of home. Like I was walking towards something I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it. At the end of the path stood a figure of indescribable beauty and majesty. Not human, but somehow perfectly personal. The presence radiated love so pure and complete that I fell to my knees, not out of fear, but out of overwhelming gratitude. "Michael," the voice resonated through every fiber of my being. "You have served faithfully with the gifts I gave you." I wanted to protest, to talk about my pride, my coldness, my spiritual mediocrity. But somehow, in this presence, all pretense melted away. "I see your heart," the voice continued. "I see the compassion you buried beneath professionalism. I see the prayers you thought I didn't hear. I see the times you wept privately for patients you couldn't save." Images flashed before me, moments I'd forgotten, staying late to comfort a grieving family, performing pro bono surgery on an uninsured immigrant. The times I'd prayed desperately during difficult operations, begging for wisdom I knew I didn't possess. "But I also see the walls you built," the presence said gently. "The fear of vulnerability that kept you from truly connecting with others. The pride that made you trust in your own abilities rather than depend on me." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry. I wasted so much time." "Time," the voice said with what I can only describe as a smile, "is not what you think it is. And waste is not a word that applies here. Everything, even your mistakes, has been woven into a greater purpose." Then the figure leaned closer, and I felt enveloped by love so complete it was almost unbearable. "Michael, I'm going to offer you something very few receive. A choice." "What kind of choice?" I whispered. "You can stay here, in perfect peace, your earthly struggles over. Or," the presence paused, "you can return. But not to the same life. If you choose to go back, you'll go back changed, with a mission, with a burden, and a blessing." I looked around the hall of reflection, at the perfect peace, the absence of pain, the pure love that permeated everything. Why would anyone choose to leave this? "If I go back," I asked, "what would be different?" "You would see people differently, feel their pain more deeply, love more completely, and yes, suffer more intensely. But you would also be able to guide others to this place. Your words would carry the weight of truth because you've been here." The figure gestured, and I saw a vision of my life if I returned. I saw myself in hospital waiting rooms, not just as a doctor, but as someone who could comfort families facing loss, because I'd seen what comes after. I saw myself speaking to churches, sharing this experience, helping others understand that death isn't the end. But I also saw the pain, the burden of knowing how short life is, how precious each moment, how many people are sleepwalking through their existence. "Why me?" I asked. "Because," the presence said, "at this very moment, in your world, 17 people are praying for you. Patricia Williams, the patient you were operating on when you died. Her children are kneeling beside their beds, begging me to save the doctor who was trying to save their mother. Your surgical team has called for prayer chains across 3 hospitals. Your own mother, who you haven't spoken to in 6 months, is in her church's prayer room, weeping and interceding for you." The vision expanded, and I could see them all. People I'd operated on years ago, families I'd helped, colleagues who respected me, even patients I thought barely remembered me. All praying, all crying out to God on my behalf. "Their prayers have reached me," the figure said. "And because of their faith, because of their love for you, I'm offering you this choice. It's not earned, Michael. It's grace multiplied by intercessory prayer." I was overwhelmed. All those people, caring enough to pray for me when I'd been so distant, so professional, so careful not to get too close. If I go back, I said slowly, will I remember all this? Every detail. That's part of the burden. You'll remember this perfect love, this perfect peace, while living in a broken world. You'll know what's waiting, while watching others stumble in darkness. As I wrestled with the decision, another figure approached. My heart nearly stopped. It was my father, who had died of a heart attack when I was in medical school. "Dad?" I whispered. He looked exactly as I remembered, but with a peace I'd never seen in him during life. "Son," he said, embracing me, "I'm so proud of who you became." "But I became just like you," I said, distant, focused on work, afraid to show emotion. He shook his head. "You became better than me. I saw every surgery, every patient you saved. I saw the heart you thought you were hiding. And I've been praying for this moment, for you to have a chance I never had." "What do you mean?" "I died with regret, son. Things left unsaid, relationships left unhealed. But you can go back. You can finish what you started, but with the wisdom of having been here." My father took my hands. "The prayers being offered for you aren't just about bringing you back to life. They're about bringing you back to living, really living, the way God intended." Tears flowed freely now. "Will I see you again?" "When it's truly your time, I'll be waiting. But right now, there are people in your world who need what you've learned here. Patricia Williams needs you to finish her surgery. Your surgical team needs to see the miracle of answered prayer. And there are thousands of others you haven't met yet who need to hear what you've seen." He smiled and began to fade. "Choose life, son. Choose to go back and really live." The divine presence returned, and with it came a final vision, a panoramic view of eternity that took my breath away. I saw the interconnectedness of all prayers, all lives, all choices. I saw how every act of kindness sends ripples across time and space. I saw people I'd never met whose lives had been changed because of someone I'd saved, who went on to save others, who raised children who became teachers and healers and servants. I saw the vast machinery of grace, how God works through flawed people like me to accomplish perfect purposes. I saw how even my emotional distance had been part of His plan, because it would make the transformation more dramatic, the testimony more powerful. "This is why intercessory prayer is so powerful," the presence explained. "When people pray for others, they're not just asking for intervention, they're weaving their faith together with mine to create new possibilities. The prayers offered for you have literally opened a door that wasn't there before." I understood now why this choice was being offered. It wasn't just about me. It was about demonstrating the power of prayer, the reality of second chances, the truth that death is not the final word. "I'll go back," I said without hesitation. "I'll go back and tell them what I've seen." The presence seemed to smile. "Then go, my child. Go and live. Really live. Until we meet again." The journey back was like being pulled through a tunnel of light at incredible speed. Suddenly, I was slammed back into my body with a force that felt like being hit by lightning. Pain flooded through me, chest pain, the sensation of electricity, the weight of my physical body after experiencing the freedom of spirit. But along with the pain came something else, an overwhelming sense of purpose. "He's back," someone shouted. "We have a pulse." I opened my eyes to see Dr. Chen's tear-stained face above me. "Dr. Harrison, can you hear me?" "Patricia," I croaked. "How's Patricia?" "She's fine," Dr. Chen sobbed. "Surgery was successful. She's going to be okay." Over the following weeks, as I recovered, I began sharing what I'd experienced. Not everyone believed me, but I noticed something remarkable. The people who had been praying for me, they knew. They could see the change in me, the authenticity of my testimony. I started spending more time with patients' families. I began calling my mother regularly. I joined a prayer group at my church. And yes, I began speaking publicly about what I'd seen, about the reality of prayer, about the hope that exists beyond death. 6 months later, Patricia Williams invited me to her daughter's graduation. As I watched that young woman receive her diploma, I thought about the ripple effects, how her mother's life, preserved by divine intervention and intercessory prayer, would continue to touch others for decades to come. If you are watching this and have been praying for someone, a loved one who is sick, someone who is lost, someone who seems to have no hope, don't give up. Your prayers are more important than you realize. They are not just words floating in space. They are powerful forces that can literally change destinies. And if you are the one who needs prayer, don't be too proud to ask. There are people who love you more than you can imagine, and God is waiting to show you His grace in ways you can't even imagine. Death is not the end. It is a door. And sometimes, through the power of prayer and God's grace, that door can open both ways. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And remember, it's never too late for a second chance, in this life or the next. If this testimony has touched your heart, please don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to this channel for more true encounters with the divine. Comment if you believe in the power of prayer, and share it with someone who needs to know that miracles still happen, that prayers are still answered, and that love is truly stronger than death. God bless you all.